Hi, this is Chef Peter McCarthy from Pier 5736. Now, back to the Dave and Chris Show.
Dave and Chris.
A bunch of thugs and mobsters. So do you find that generally you're kind of typecast that way? Not that you look like that, really. Although Dave is a cop. So.
On AM 1530, WJJG.
I don't like that Family Guy thing. Welcome back to the Dave and Chris Show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How can you not like Family Guy?
I don't like those Family Guy. Welcome back to the Dave and Chris
Show. Show. Okay, it's Matt's in charge.
WJJG AM 1530, and we are here with Sun Times columnist Mark Brown.
Mr. Fellas.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right.
I just want to tell you off the bat, I'm totally intimidated right now.
Oh, yeah, because you're a real journalist. There's amateurs playing here.
Yeah, we're just goofing off.
I'm afraid of radio, so how's that?
Hey, all right,
good. All right. Well, we invited you here, and not to run you through the ringer, as you apparently a lot of people were cheering me on today as I was leaving work.
I don't understand. Why would they do that?
Because all right. But anyway, I wanted to get some response, or I wanted to find out what the response was to your column on Sunday. On Sunday, you wrote a column that was entitled "Good Cops Should Express Their Fury Over Corruption." What was it?
Yeah.
And you challenged police officers to speak out about corrupt cops. And where is there? Some of the quotes were, "It all falls apart if you can't trust the police. By it, I mean our society and all its working parts. The whole ball of wax. Everything depends on having an honest, ethical police force on which the public can rely to enforce the rules fairly and keep the peace. And that's a lot of responsibility to put on the men and women who carry the badge, but it has to weigh heavily on them as the gun on their hips." And all right, we're not going to quote too much, but basically that's it. And you wanted people to come out and say and express their fury. Is that a good?
Fury was a word in a headline writer put on there to make it sound a little more interesting than what I wrote. But it's a fair reflection what I said. I mean, what I said was I'd like to see some demonstration from Chicago police officers that they take all these problems as seriously as the public does, and it's hard to tell sometimes. You're just not sure because there's the feeling that the police stick up for the police, as you well know, and I wanted to see something out there. And by demonstration I didn't mean like a protest march, but writing into me was a way of demonstrating, I thought. But
and apparently a lot of people did.
I did hear from a lot of people.
What kind of response did you get? About how many?
Well, a few dozen, I guess, which is pretty good. And a lot of that was, some of that was drummed up by the Second City Cop blog spot. But, I'll take it where I get it.
Yeah, they had about 100. They had 100 responses when they linked to your blog.
The gist of the ones that made their way directly to me were, yes, police officers are very upset about the Finnegan case and the SOS cases in general, and some of these other related scandals that we've had. But at the same time, I'd say the overwhelming tenor was that these are sort of just a few bad apples, and that the real problem is that those of people like me in the news media lump everybody together with these guys, and that if we wrote more about hero cops, then the public wouldn't have this perception of the police. That's really what I was getting.
Well, I would at least, I would split that up a little bit and put it to you this way. Don't you think that the media, don't you think that the media does have some part to play in their coverage of when these situations do arise? I'm not going to say there's no corruption, but as I said off the air, the bad apples rise to the top, and they're generally caught and they're brought to justice.
Yeah,
But when that happens, doesn't the media cover that 10 times, 100 times, maybe 1,000 times more than any of the good stuff that the police do?
Hey, blood sells papers.
Well, I agree. I think it's a lot of it has to do with the controversy.
But on the other hand, if they wrote about good cops, you'd be writing the same good cop story every single day. Am I right?
Well, we do look for news. You know, the idea is it's a newspaper, and you look for what's different, and you know,
And that's an interesting
a
point.
lot in all aspects of society. You know, that is a common complaint. People will say, "Well, where's the positive stuff?" But if you just put the positive stuff in there, nobody's going to buy the paper for one, because
news is whatever is abnormal. Is that right, Mark?
I'm sorry?
News is pretty much whatever is abnormal, whatever is off the
Yes,
normal
a
path.
police officer going out and doing his job, you know,
It's not news.
generally is not news. Now, a police officer doing his job above and beyond the call, that can be news. You know, frankly, it's a frustration of mine that I don't hear more about. You know, I mean, I like real crime stories. You know, I like to know what those kind of things.
All right, well,
And
let me ask you.
I wish you know, more of those made their way to my attention, but they don't.
Well, let me ask you a question this way, Mark. I mean, when stories are covered, and we've seen a couple of shootings in the past, and this is a personal beef of mine with when the media covers things. Most reporters, and I've talked to a lot of them, they know that police officers, when they're involved in any of these types of shootings, cannot give statements to the media. They're precluded by the police department, by the corporation counsel, whoever. They can't give statements to the media. The police department never does, for either whatever reasons the police department decides not to. And the reporters know that, yet the reporters will go out and present anybody off the street that's willing to talk to them as credible witnesses. So they slant the stories.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
No, I'm talking about this last shooting on the west side, and it caused a lot of near riots. And it was, I mean, you have police officers on the scene, and the police department gives a statement that they had a gun, they pointed at the police officers. Then you have a family who was not on the scene saying there's no way he wasn't carrying a gun. And the police officers were allegedly saying he had a gun, and the family was saying he didn't have a gun.
All right, Mark, I got a question for you.
Okay, he had a question too. You want to stick with his?
Okay, Terry, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. Go answer Dave's
Go ahead.
question.
Well, I was still waiting for Dave to put it into a question for me.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry. My point is that the reporters understand that, but they don't seem to present it in a way that seems to be fair to the police. They don't.
Still
they
not
don't.
a question.
Okay, well,
Why don't they do that?
Let's talk. You know, really, you know, and I may share some concerns on there, but you know, for many years, the assumption from on the end of the news media on all these things was that the police shooting was justified. That's just the way, truthfully, we would go into these things. But you know, over the years, you know, things like the Burge case, you know, there's just all of this stuff adds up to where like you have to question yourself. And when there's a lot of shootings, and you know, you just can't automatically discount what you're hearing from the people in the community. Now, you know, do I see these stories on TV at night and go to myself, well, you know, who is that person making that accusation, and you know, what role do they play in whatever, you know, criminal enterprise may go on in that, you know, neighborhood? But where am I going here?
We ask ourselves that question every day, Mark. Where are we going?
I hate radio. You know, I don't have time to think. But yeah, they're. I mean, basically, we've reached a point where we feel like we got to at least try to take into account what people are saying, because you know, we didn't manufacture that situation out there. You know, those people were flipping out on their own. Now, are they attracted by cameras? You know, reporters to some degree, but you know, we just can't ignore that stuff.
Well, in that kind of brings me to the question that I was going to pose a few moments ago, and that is, I'm sort of in between right here, because I understand the point of view that police officers have. I'm not a cop, but I know a lot of cops, and understand a journalist's point of view too, because I almost was one, not one, almost. And I think you both have an equally important responsibility to the public, and that it is you each have a different point of view. If I'm not mistaken, and what I believe is that the journalist purpose is to basically put it to everybody, and to investigate everything until there's nothing left to investigate, and put everything out there to try their best to make what's going on in the public transparent. And the police officer's job is to take care of what's going on in the public when it happens. And so oftentimes I think those two things are in conflict.
Oh, actually, I would dispute that wholeheartely, and that would bring me to the point that I was going to make.
Well, let's let Mark answer.
Okay, wait. Let me.
No, I want to hear what he's disputing first.
Okay.
Pretty much everything I say ever.
I thought what you said made sense, man.
All right, listen. No, I'll tell you why I'll dispute it, and I was going to bring it. I was going to make the same
point. I need to
point.
slap you and get you on track
No,
here, man?
because I don't think that the reporter's job is necessarily, and I think it's gotten to that point, and I don't think it should be. The reporter's job should be pretty much the same as the police department's job, and it shouldn't be to present all sides and all views. It should be to find the truth. And the police department's job should be to find the truth. You have to look at all
sides in order to find the truth.
You have to look at all sides, but you don't have to put everybody on TV and let them make all their ridiculous statements on TV.
out of this, because
or in the
TV's
paper
not
or whatever.
journalism.
But the point is,
journalism that matters.
Yeah, but a journalist should be able to go and talk to people and investigate stuff and get all sides of the story, but they should be able to figure out and try to investigate it to find the truth, not to present all sides of the story.
But wait a minute. You've had to investigate people in the middle of a crime.
Yes.
And you tell me that you don't go check other witnesses and ask what their story was? In order
I
to
go check them out, but I don't put them all on the stand. I don't put them on.
It all goes into what you think about the person that you've arrested, right?
Well, I mean, look. I guess part of what the problem here is that I mean, the main witnesses are often withheld from us, right? The real witnesses.
Yes,
the police are holding those back from us. They don't want us talking to them because they might say the wrong thing to us, and then they're out there, or we might interpret it wrong, and then that's out there in the public way, and it can be challenged later. I mean, or it also could put the witness at risk. All kinds of things like that. So a lot of times, we don't have the real witnesses. We have what we can find. When we walk up there cold in a neighborhood where we don't have any, we don't have the power of the law to get us any information. All we have is, whatever we can sweet talk, or people attracted to a camera or a notebook or whatever. So that's one problem, and then the other problem is we've got to inform people about what's happening right there within the space of a lot of these things at night within the space of an hour, right?
It's a tough job.
You've got some time to sort it out. We can only take it as far as we can take it, and then we can't go beyond that. I mean,
so, Mark, if I can interrupt you, I think the point that I was trying to also get to is that when it comes to the bad cops, the good officers and reporters have the same obligation, and that is to root them out and expose them. If they're a bad cop, they need to be exposed, and so a good cop ought to do it, and reporters ought to do it.
How we can? Oh man, I mean, there are some people in our profession who try to root out bad cops, but I personally feel like it's beyond me. That's a handful.
Well, and I think the public kind of has a perception in that it's a closed society, and I think if I was a cop, it would be a closed society. I mean, if you've got a buddy that's on the force that's doing something that's not really cool, but it's not exactly dangerous or illegal, you're not going to rat him out to the press or somebody else like that. You might take him off the side and say, dude, that's making me uncomfortable, but you're not going to rat him out. But if the guy is going over the line legally, then that's the point where there's a real question of action.
I mean, I've been on the police department for 12 years, and I very rarely do I see anybody. I mean, I've never actually. I mean, when I came on, I saw guys that said, "Stay away from that guy, stay away from that guy, stay away from that guy." And within months of my coming on, that was the Austin 7. And I mean, but everybody knew, and they were being investigated, and they were eventually going to go down. But you don't see that kind of stuff. A lot of people that I didn't know Jerry Finnegan, but I know some people that did. I mean, my mother knew him, thought he was a great guy. Was complete shocked by this, and thought that there's a lot of people that thought these guys were great policemen, and
maybe they were great policemen.
I mean, they were. They had a public face, and they had a private action too. So it's not like a lot of people knew what these guys were doing. Very few people knew what they were doing, and a lot of those people were involved, obviously. So it's not like everybody knows and doesn't say anything. But my point being is it's not that there's a code of silence like everybody says there used to be in my dad's.
It's not a Martin Scorsese movie.
Right. I mean, it's not that everybody knows and they're all hiding all the dirty, dark secrets. You know, I mean, it's pretty much open.
Yeah.
So
well, you mentioned the Austin. So at the point you got into were you in the Austin district?
yes.
So at the point you got in there, they were telling you to stay away from those guys because it was already known that they were under investigation, right?
Well, it seemed, or at least when I was, my training officer told me that yeah, watch out for these guys. They're bad news. And then within months, you know, I mean, I don't know specifically if he knew that they were under investigation. But
I mean, one of the things that's like most stunning to me, and from over the years, is probably the time I got to be closest to working and seeing how the police work was in the Austin district when O'Shield was the commander. He let me ride around with some guys who I won't name, and you know, I came to think of those guys as, at least one of them, as like, man, I just thought he was like the greatest police officer in the world. You know, the guts and and how smooth he was on the street and going into situations. And now he's one of the guys. He wasn't charged, but his career came crashing down because of his relationship in there, and he's part of the rumors of he did stuff, and it's like it's just heartbreaking to me from having seen this guy and thinking he was the greatest guy. I'd want all police officers.
Well, and
what I saw from him.
Since I've moved to Chicago, when I lived in Florida, I didn't know any cops. But living in Chicago is different, and there's cops living next to you. I mean, there's a lot of cops in Chicago, and they're all, I know a lot of them now, and I have to say they're great guys. That's it. Fundamentally, great guys. I've never met a police officer where I thought, oh, that guy's up to something, and in general, I mean, they're a cop, but they're just people, So they're going to have, like Dave said, they've got a public face. They got a private face. If I had a job, I don't. I'm a man of leisure. But if I had a job,
a housewife.
I'm a man wife, and I went to work every day. I have a work face, and nobody knows the weird stuff that goes on. At home. They don't know that I watch a lot of cartoons and
soap operas.
They don't know that. And God help, I don't want anyone to know that. And I guess there's police officers that have exactly the same kind of thing. They've got a work face and they got a not work face. And it just so happens in this guy's case, they were dynamically opposed.
And I don't know how they went down. I mean, I have my suspicions of how they went down. So I don't understand it because these guys, I mean, I am the son of two police officers. They are, some of them are the sons of police officers. I mean, I remember coming on the job and having a talk with my dad and, basically, and my mother talking about how this stuff is not acceptable. And I don't understand how, people who grew up in this kind of culture could have done the wrong thing, especially when their parents didn't. So, Mark, can you hold on through the break? Because we got to take a break.
Sure.
All right, thanks. We'll be right back on WJJG AM 1530
with Mark Brown from
Sometimes Comes. Yeah, Mark Brown. Thanks.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step over.
Sorry, Chris.
I'm not a professional.
It took years of planning to get the show going to the level that it is right now. Years, and there was school involved, and we had to pay for a consultant, and we've spent millions to get to the level we're at right now, where we can have what appears to be castaway equipment from the Second World War to broadcast from.
On AM 1530, WJJG.
All right, welcome back to the Dave and Chris Show on WJJG AM 1530. We're going to take calls in a couple minutes at 708-493-1530, but we're going to finish up here with Sun-Times columnist Mark Brown. We're talking about police corruption and Mark Brown's columns over the last couple of weeks. And, Mark, I downloaded a couple of, some comments. I think I just want to go over one before we kind of wrap it up.
Sure.
I took these off of the Second City Cop because they posted a link to your column. One of them was that one of the columns or the comments I thought was interesting that I hadn't thought of was that a demonstration wouldn't really change anybody's mind. All it would do would be create more controversy, which would the only people that would benefit would be the media. And I thought, do you think that really, if the good police really spoke up, would it change anybody's mind any more than just going in every day and doing your job and just being quiet and doing what you're paid to do?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that speaking up could help. I do. I think people don't know what's on the minds of police, and again, when I used the word demonstrate, it didn't mean demonstration. It didn't mean protest march. But,
Maybe like having a radio show and talking about it?
Well, that's a good start.
Let's not forget he uses language precisely, so by demonstrate he meant do something.
Yeah, I think we're the only, I'm the only police officer with a radio show.
Yeah, well, and I know you pay me off every week, so it's totally corrupt.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking, the union could get involved. It was probably unrealistic, in many ways, especially my saying, put your, in the letters I was saying for people to attach their names. I understand you're in an organization that, where you're just not permitted to, stick out that way. You got to follow the rules of the organization.
Do you really think that's true, Mark?
What?
Do you really think that the police officers and union reps and stuff that are involved in this kind of thing, whatever business they are in, but in particular in the police union, do you think that there really is this culture of silence, or do you think that if somebody spoke up, there would be other officers and administrators that would come by and say, hey, thanks?
In a sarcastic way, you mean?
No, I meant for real. No, not with the end of a gun, Dave. I meant for real. Because, Mark, we're not talking just about police corruption. What we're really talking about is human nature. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Somebody's going to do things the wrong way. And they're going to try to get one by everybody. And so this guy happened to be a cop while he was doing it. But people do that in every business, right, Mark?
That's true. Police have a very important job, though, and that whole business of carrying the gun, it puts a lot more on them, and it makes the potential harm greater too.
Well, Mark, I just wanted to say I thought this was a great interview, and I really appreciate you being on our show. I think that the next 3 columns should exclusively be about the Dave and Chris show.
Yeah. I think that's the only way really to get the
that's
point
really the only way you're going
to. That's a start.
Yeah, there you go. Just a million hits if you could.
Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, Mark.
Thanks for having me on. If some of your callers want to come after me, at least somebody defend me, just a little bit.
Well, we'll be giving out your address. So,
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well,
so if you want to call in and talk about this subject, please call 708-493-1530. That number, again, in a language that you can understand at a speed you can hear, is 708-493-1530.